Ladies and gentlemen, you've asked for it. You are getting it, folks. Welcome to the inaugural Z Gentlemen Fantasy Football Podcast. Ladies
Woo.
and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Eric. I'd like to welcome you to this. Well, we're going to call it a podcast, but let's be realistic. There's just going to be a lot of shit talking that goes on. So we hope you enjoy the ride. We're going to be doing this every couple of days during the week. We're going to provide some great insight. Like I said, some shit talking. There'll be a lot of that. And you'll get to know us on hopefully a personal level. So, like I said, my name is Eric. I'm one of the members of this fantastic league of gentlemen. I'd like to pass it along now to some of these other fine gents that are going to be joining us in this wonderful excursion. Chris, would you like to chime in here and say hello to the fine folks at home?
Yeah, hey folks, what's going on, Chris? You know, back-to-back champ of the league. I think that's really all that needs to be said. Eric, thank you for that lovely intro. Providing great insight. I'm not sure that's what we're going to be doing. It's going to be insight. Whether it's great or not, that's up to the listeners. But great to be here. Thanks for everyone for listening, and it's gonna be a fun ride. So stick with us, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two about fantasy football. That's the hope, at least.
John, if you'd like to chime in next.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is John, inaugural champion of the league, leading scorer of the league, and then all-time winningest member of the league as well. Yeah, like Eric said, I'll be probably supplying most of the trash talk, most of it going in the next member's direction. But yeah, it'll be a fun ride. I'll be complaining about my team being ravaged with injuries most of the season. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, happy to be here, at least for the time being.
Well, John, we're very glad to have you. And the yin to the yang, Mark, please introduce yourself.
Save the best for last, I see.
Of course.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark. I was the second place finisher in 2014 due to a stroke of bad luck. The number one seed in 2015, riddled by injuries at the end of the season, capping a playoff run short. And my team in 2016 was, let's say, co-coached poorly. Said co-coach has been removed, so 2017 is looking like a bright season.
Hey, she was great. She was great.
She was below average. 2017 looking good for Team Californication.
Well,
And as always, excited to be here. Excited to talk some shit to John. Give the listeners a few weeks to prepare for my week one beatdown.
I'd like it to be known that John is the only member of this podcast that can do the splits as well. So I guess you can also add that to your trophy collection, John.
That is true. That is a true statement.
I feel like that should have been the first thing that you entered with.
And
Like, hi, I'm
easily
John.
the best beard in the whole league as well. Want to make that known.
That's up for debate, but we'll also cross that bridge when we come to it.
Fair enough.
well, since we got everyone's wonderful introductions in, we're going to kind of go over just a little bit how we're going to do this podcast for you folks. What we're going to attempt, as Chris made mention, is we're going to try to give you some insight. But at least for this first episode, we want to kind of bring you in to our league, show you kind of the ins and the outs of what we do, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two, and you'll bring it into your leagues as we move forward. So on this podcast, we're going to go over our league history. This is our fourth year of doing this league. To kind of give you a little bit of a background, all of us were at one point students from the greatest university, the east side of the Mississippi, that is the University of Illinois, down at the great cities of Urbana and Champaign.
Is it really bad that I had to figure out if we were actually east of
I
Mississippi?
did the same thing. So
I was like,
yeah.
Mississippi. Yep, no, we're definitely east.
Well, you know,
Definitely
I
east.
figured, you know, since we're gonna be instilling, you know, some lessons, I figured maybe we'll do a little geography as well.
Boom.
As the two from Illinois, I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
I know
that
Hey,
was-
I'm west technically of the Mississippi as we speak right now, so I'm all confused.
yeah. I just screwed that one up bad.
Well, that's all right. We will move on. So like I said, we were all at one point students at Illinois, all great friends. Decided one year, you know what? We're such great friends. We should start a fantasy football league.
To ruin
Don't
it all.
do that.
To
Yeah,
ruin
don't do that.
our entire friendships. That's all it has done. So
Don't do yeah. Don't start a fantasy football league with your friends. Terrible idea.
So like I said, 4 years later, this is where we're at. So we're going to kind of kick things off here. We're going to do a little bit of our league history. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, John, and Mark. They're going to kind of go through each year. They're going to tell you some of, like I said, the ins, the outs, what happened. As you probably can figure out, two of the winners have won.
The
All
only
of
two
the
winners.
years
The
so
only
far.
winners. The only winners.
Well, they say history is history, so we'll just continue.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah. Anyways, Chris, John, Mark, introduce to the fine folks that are listening in our league history, if you so.
Let's do it. 2014, like I said, inaugural season. I went home with the championship. Division winners from 2014. I took home one of the divisions. Brent took home one. He was this 2 seed in the playoffs, and Mark was the 3 seed. Eric and Chris, surprisingly enough, 2 wild cards, the 4 and the 5 seed. So the 1, 4, and 5 all in the same division. We were pretty good that year. I basically was, I think it was 11-2 in the regular season. Just ran over everyone in the playoffs to the title. Couple of interesting things in terms of scoring that season. 2 of the 3 highest scoring seasons that we've had in the league took place that year. I had the highest overall score. Eric was second that year, so he had the 3rd highest scoring season that we've had. We also had the 2 lowest scoring seasons ever. Cam and Drake didn't even break 1,000 that year. Cam, the lowest score we had ever at 924. And considering we're moving to PPR this year, I don't see that ever being broken.
Really? Under 1,000?
Drake and Cam both under
That's
1,000.
like astounding.
I was at 1396 was my final.
Bad.
It was very
That's just bad. Like that's so bad. I didn't even think about that, but that is just really bad.
I mean, and yeah, furthering the argument of just not a whole lot of competitiveness top to bottom. We had 2 double-digit winners in the season, me and Eric. 3 teams only had 3 wins throughout the season as well. So a few good teams at the top, not a whole lot when you get to the bottom of it. I had 5 weeks of 120 points or more. Just wanted to point that one out to 135 point plus. Mark had 3, so he was. I'll give him credit on that one, I guess.
Congrats, Mark.
Yeah.
No surprise. No surprise at all.
Basically, what carried me the entire season was Antonio Brown and Demaryius Thomas, who were 1 and 2 in the wide receiver categories. Also had 3 top 10 running backs, which helped as well. Let's talk about Eric's team for a second, because oh boy, Eric. Eric lost 4 times the entire season. 3 of those were to me.
Thank you, John, because I really wanted to
it's really rough. He
remind
lost
myself of that pain.
Yeah, twice in the regular season. 2nd round in the playoffs, lost to me. I don't know how his team came together like it did. He took a quarterback in the 1st round. Granted, turned out to be the number 1 quarterback in the league. It was Aaron Rodgers that year. He drafted 2 defenses. That year.
Sneaky good pick.
Defense wins championships.
John, I will have you know. I will have you know that is a draft strategy that I continue to this day. So thank you very much.
It hasn't worked out
for you.
Yeah.
Debatable.
Really, what helped Eric that year, number 1 quarterback, like I said, Aaron Rodgers. He had DeMarco Murray, who was the number 1 running back that year. He got Odell Beckham Jr. off waivers in October. That helped him, obviously. But yeah, just not enough when he came against me. It was a little rough. A couple of just fun facts as we close out the 2014 season. Dibbs, our good friend Dibbs, broke 100 points once in all of the regular season, and it was like 100 point something. 1st round of the playoffs, Dibbs puts up 144.1 points. It is tied for the 2nd most points in the history of our league in a single week. Matt Ryan, 31 points. T.Y. Hilton, 25. Eddie Lacy, 22. Julian Edelman, 20.5. The Rams defense, 24 points. It
Big
was
players make big plays in big
ridiculous.
games.
Amazing.
By far his best week ever, and he was 3-10 in the regular season. And just if his team had played that well, or even close to that, it might have been a little bit different. But poor dibs. But solid week for him.
That's
Another
just
thing-
dibs, though.
It is,
That's just dibs. 3-10 puts up 150 points in a meaningless week.
Yep. Another thing that I just found incredibly shocking: 3 quarterbacks go in the first round of the draft.
Wait, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. I only have who drafted him. Cam, Brett, and Eric all drafted a quarterback. And I've actually looked back at. I'm stealing a little bit from the couple of the other seasons. Stop drafting quarterbacks early. Eric breaks the trend, but we had 3 quarterbacks go in the first round. Cam finished last. Brett finished in 9th place, and Eric finished second. I don't know how he did that. We're gonna
Because he picked up
2015.
Odell Beckham.
2015, no one takes a quarterback in the first round. We have 2 go in the second, Drake and Eric. Eric again. Drake finished last. Eric finishes in 10th place. 2016, we have 2 quarterbacks go in the second round again, where Mel finishes in dead last. Brett finishes in 7th.
Okay, so Eric is a Packers fan. So
True, but Eric, I think
always
that other year
goes.
was not Aaron Rodgers. That wasn't his pick.
Being
Still,
a Packers fan is worth 0 fantasy points.
It really is, and folks are going to
Exactly.
come to realize these guys like to screw with me. So any chance I can get when drafting a Packers player, I have to keep my mouth shut. Otherwise, they know it's coming, and they will gobble up any good Packers player before I can get him, and it usually pisses me off.
I
This
won't
year
because I'm
especially
not
was
gonna
fantastic.
reach.
But yeah, found that was interesting. 3 quarterbacks in the first round.
Hey, people got different strategies, man.
Yeah, hasn't
let it-
worked out. Besides
Yeah.
Eric's team, has not worked out.
I never said they were good strategies.
Yeah.
They are certainly strategies.
Yeah, and then I guess a couple other things. It's ridiculous how I lost the weeks I did because I put up some stupid points and still would lose. I had a week where Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Colin Kaepernick combined for 60 points, and I lose. And I had a week where Doug Martin, Jamal Charles, and Demaryius Thomas combined for 12 points. I just don't get how I was so hot and cold in certain weeks. But
Are you
Mark-
done bitching?
Mark, you beat me one of those
Yeah.
weeks, and I'm just annoyed by it.
This sounds like a lot of complaining for a league
It-
champion.
Yeah,
No
it could have been
surprise.
better. It should have been undefeated. That's all I'm saying.
John, are you done complaining now? Because I think the
I
listeners would
guess.
like to get on
I
to the
guess.
next year. Okay.
Yeah. Congrats on your win. Yada, yada, yada.
Thank you.
Won't happen again.
Thank you.
Exactly. Especially this year.
Oh, definitely not this year.
We can
Right.
edit 90% of that out onto 2015. I'm going to ramble a little bit less. 2015 was a solid season in the regular season, and then it was derailed by injuries. So we had some dark horses sneak through the playoffs. Our regular season shook out. We had 3 divisions. 8 teams make the playoffs. Division winners and then wild cards.
That was a
3
terrible
division
decision to
winners.
have eight people, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible decision.
6 teams max.
Yeah,
We
we
had
had,
three.
what? 75% of the teams make the playoffs? That's
Too
just stupid.
66.7%, but
That's
whatever.
perfectly even number.
So we had 3 divisions in 2015. Creepy, weird, and awkward. My team, kicker, I hardly know her, won the creepy division with a record of 11-2. Matus, Chris's best man, won the weird division.
Shouts to
His team-
Matus.
His team's sneaky good pick featuring Allen Robinson finished 9-4 to win the weird division. And then Brett, somehow, still don't know how this worked out, Jaquiz in my pants won the awkward division with a record of 8-5, the lowest of the division winners. So teams that got into the playoffs, I was the 1 seed, Matus the 2 seed, Brett the 3 seed is the division winners. And then wild cards, John the 4, Ramel 5 seed, Chris 6 seed, Michael 7 seed, and then Eric the 8 seed. First round of the playoffs, I handily defeat the 8 seed Eric by a score of 99-60. Matus, the 2 seed, drops his game to the 7 seed, 96-72. And another upset, Chris, the Ultimate League champion, defeats Brett by a score of 83-81 in the only
Sneaks
close
by.
game of the playoffs. And then John, the 4 seed, loses to Ramel, the 5 seed, by a score of 123 to 86. Ramel puts up the highest score that week.
Just absolute domination. Sorry, John. That's
Yeah,
bad.
it happens, you know.
It happens.
Ramel did have
you got to shrug it
a
off.
playoff run. Semifinals, conference championships. I unfortunately lose to Ramel, who puts up 137 points. Highest score of the entire playoffs, other than the championship game, which we'll get to. Chris defeats Mike in the 3rd place game, 122 to 90. Fun fact, Brett, who only lost by 2 in the wild card, would have won this game with a score of 126. So things can shake out differently. It's a game of inches. So in the championship, we have the 5 and the 6 seed. And in the 3rd place game, we have the 1 and the 7 seed. Of course, I win the 3rd place game with my bandaged team pieced together, decimated by injuries, defeating Michael by 2 points. And in the championship, potentially the most interesting game of the year, our 6 seed Chris defeats the 5 seed Ramel 150 to 103.
Squad.
So
The only 150-point week someone has put up to this date.
Whoop, whoop.
yes, highest
Yeah, that was-
single week in league history.
Yeah.
That was a great week.
Here's
Chris,
how
you
it
Great
put
time
up-
to have it.
You put up 143 times throughout our league history, which is just crazy.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
The team
I
was
tried.
led by none other than the Cardinals defense with 35 points.
That was a great game. They had like 3 touchdowns that game, if I
Yep.
remember correctly.
And it didn't hurt that Blair Walsh, the best kicker of all time, obviously, added 23. So we had a combined 58 points from the defense and a kicker. Not bad.
Just how I drew it up. That's all I have to say to that. Just how I drew it up.
So, what makes this season interesting? And obviously, we had some dark horses go through the playoffs. Chris's starting lineup for the championship game: Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Forte and Tim Hightower, Julio Jones and Golden Tate, Austin Safarian Jenkins, just for the record, James White as the flex, Cardinals D, and Blair Walsh. The only top 10 scoring players at their positions: Julio Jones, number 2 receiver, Matt Forte, the number 9 running back, and then defense and kicker, both number 3 at their position. Outside the top 20, which makes this team particularly interesting in how they made it to the championship. So, all in all, interesting season. My team decimated by injuries. That's the takeaway. The best team did not win, obviously.
I don't even remember who you had that got hurt, to
But-
be honest.
I don't remember
Apparently
either,
everyone.
but I do remember that I ended up starting Sean Jerome as my RB1
Okay.
in the playoffs.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
That's really bad. My team, I'm pretty sure there are only 2 players on that
No.
team that I drafted. Maybe 3.
Probably Julio Jones and either Golden Tate or Big Ben.
I think I drafted Forte. But-
Probably Forte in that year as well. Yeah, that's true.
I think that's it. Tim Hightower picked up because Mark Ingram got hurt, and so they
Yep.
just kept feeding Hightower the ball. I was like, sure, keep doing that. Why not?
He was a beast.
Austin Safarian Jenkins, yeah, that's before he's suspended and all of that. When we actually thought that he could play football.
People
Just
did
gotta give a
think
shout
that.
out to the Cardinals defense and Blair Walsh. That's really all it is. I mean, just 2 powerhouse players. And took
Certainly
me
a
to
bold
the,
strategy.
Yeah, it took me to the championship. I would have drafted them easily in like the 2nd or 3rd round that year, but they were on waivers, so why not?
That wraps it up for 2015. Disappointment of a season. Let's hear about 2016.
2016, definitely not a disappointment of a season for me, at least. So this year we kind of changed it up. We went to 4 divisions, and we had 6 teams
You're
make
welcome.
the playoffs. Yeah, definitely a much better league setup than in previous years. A lot more parity, and not 75% of the teams making the playoffs, which is just crazy.
66.7.
Yes, that's like the primo number. So if you ever need, you're setting up your league, that's what you want. So this is the year that became the Legion of Dibs, named after one of the esteemed members of our league, Dibs. And John ended up actually in first place in the dangerous Dobson division with a record of 8-5. Mikey Mike just exploded this year after having two just very to very bad years. Finished with 11-2 record. I finished in first place in my division. And Brent, year of the kicker. Although Blair Walsh last year in 2015 could make an argument for that. Brent finished in first with a record of 10-3. So in the playoffs, we had Mikey Mike as the number 1 seed, Brent as the number 2 seed. They both had byes, so they had it pretty easy. And I think during that first playoff week, they each scored no more than 70 points. So the bye definitely worked out for them. I finished in third. John had the number 4 seed, and John took on the 5 seed, which was Cam. And I took on Brett as the 6th seed. Now, in my matchup with Brett, I ended up defeating him 92-83. Now, what's specifically interesting about that game is that Des Bryant scored -1 points. So if Des Bryant fell into a touchdown, I would not be back-to-back league champion. So you could say it's luck. You could say it's skill.
You could say it's collusion.
You could say it's collusion.
I think it's collusion.
It's normally collusion. That's normally how everything works.
20 minutes for the first collusion reference, and I'm actually kind of proud of ourselves for that.
Just the entire league is just full of collusion. I mean, that's the only reason why I'm back-to-back champion.
By the way, if you're playing at home, that is the first mention of collusion, so you can take your first drink if you're playing the Z Fantasy Football drinking game.
Yeah. Every time we say collusion, you just have to drink until you die, basically. So
we are not condoning that, by the way.
Anyway, back to the playoffs. John defeats Cam by the narrowest of margins. 101.1 to 100. So very, very close games here in the first round of the playoffs. Moving on, Mikey Mike then takes on John, and he loses 108 to 96. So John moves into the championship game. And then Brent and I face off, and Brent loses 108 to 78. So not really close matchups, but once again, the best in fantasy football, myself, taking on John in the championship, and it wasn't close. It was not close. I take home the crown once again, scoring 123 points. John has 82. And from that game, Big Ben, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Tyrell Williams, and T.Y. Hilton all had more than 12.4 fantasy points in that game. So I think right off the bat, basically, I had John beat before he even got into flex, tight end, all those guys. So I'm sorry, John. I apologize for your loss, but I don't really feel any pain taking home the championship. And then the third place game, Mikey Mike takes on Brent and loses 79 to 67 in one of the worst third place games of all time. I mean, both teams scoring under 80 points, that is insane, unheard of, very bad. And in the last place game, Drake takes on a fellow podcaster, Mark. And Hannah. The other. No, just Hannah. My apologies, Mark. And actually, this game is quite the bloodbath. Mark takes down Drake 119 to 115. So either of those two guys going up against the top two scorers would have just blown them out. But unfortunately, somebody has to get last. So unfortunately, it was Drake. And from that game, Aaron Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell combined for 63 fantasy points for Drake's team, which is over half of the fantasy points Drake scored. The problem was TJ Yeldon scored I don't really know how else to say it other than very, very bad score of 0.5. So, Drake, do better next time. Just make sure you have Aaron Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell on your team. You'll be fine. Don't ever play TJ Yeldon. That basically wraps up 2016. What happened? Now, I'd actually like to go and talk a little bit more about 2016 because this was basically the season of trades. And I am not sure how I got away with any of the trades that I made this year. But most of them worked out in my favor, I'd say. Yes, John, you're an idiot. We'll get to that later. First week of before the third week, I make a trade with Dibs. Terrible trade. I have no idea. In hindsight, this looks awful. I get Alshon. He gets Marvin Jones, Jay Ajayi. Marvin Jones, okay, yeah, whatever. In that third week, Marvin Jones went for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns and scored 33 fantasy points. Okay. Later on, I trade for T.Y. Hilton. I give up Ryan Matthews and Spencer Ware. Okay, Spencer Ware, pretty decent. Ryan Matthews is just bad. Garbage. Awful. T.Y. Hilton ends up becoming the 5th highest scoring wide receiver. He's on my team the entire year. This is when it gets interesting. Before the 5th week, I trade with John. I get Jonathan Stewart and Odell Beckham Jr. Who do I give up? Alshon Jeffrey and Willie Snead. No one had really broken out to this point yet, but looking back on it, John, I have no idea what you were thinking. Right. So now we fast forward 4 weeks, and I give back Jonathan Stewart, and Odell Beckham Jr., along with Zach Miller. And in return, I receive John Brown, who does absolutely nothing the entire rest of the year. And I receive Ezekiel Elliott. Now, mind you, we are in a standard scoring at this point. So running backs are at a premium. They are the highest of the players that you can have. Now, from week 9 to week 16 till the end of the season, Odell Beckham scores 112 points. That's very good. Jonathan Stewart scores 74. John, would you like to take a guess as to how many points Ezekiel Elliott scored in that time frame? Weeks 9 to week 16, basically the rest of the season after the trade, how many points does Ezekiel Elliott score? 171. 171. So basically, him by himself almost outpaced Odell Beckham and Jonathan Stewart by themselves. Yeah. I'd say that worked out in my favor. So, thank you, John. I appreciate. No, you really haven't. Well, I guess we might touch on that later, but just thank you so much. Thank you. You really outdone yourself that season. And I really couldn't have won the championship without you. I appreciate it. So thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're going to call it a wrap here for episode 1, the inaugural episode of Z Gentleman Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you to Matus for tuning in and anybody else who clicked it accidentally. We appreciate you sticking with us. Next episode, we'll be talking about the draft strategies from early, middle, and late slots, how we built our teams, and then some steals and some reaches that we had in our draft to help you guys get ready for yours if you're drafting right before the season. So look for that coming out in iTunes and Google Play. Hope to catch you that time. For my guys here, Chris, Eric, and John, my name is Mark. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.